Hello, my name is Malcolm Fry. Welcome to this presentation on CMDB, Configuration Management Database, as I'm sure you know. I'm going to explain roughly what it is and how it works and how it fits together. We don't have hours, which is what it might take to really go into detail, but we can do an overview and understand the basics of how it works. I'm actually author of a couple of ITIL books, ITIL-based books, the Roadmap to Full or Partial ITIL Implementation, which is known as ITIL Lite, which is its proper title, and also Building an ITIL-based Service Management Department. But today I'm going to be talking about CMDB. So what is a CMDB? Well, it's a database that contains all relevant details of each configuration items and the relationship between those items. Okay, I'm not a lot better off right there. Let's actually take that a bit further. First of all, let's step back just a fraction from the CMDB and have a look at what we're talking about. If we think of all the components, assets, or whatever you want to call them, that go to make up the infrastructure of IT, that's what the configuration items are. They're the components, they're the systems, they're the services, they're the servers, etc., etc. In other words, the infrastructure. Let's look at that then in some detail. Imagine you had in front of you right now all the pieces that go to make a car. Every single piece is laid on the floor right now, all nice and neatly in nice little lines. So what do I have? Well, I have inventory. I can go and say, there's a steering wheel there, there's 4 tyres over there, there's a spare tyre over there. I can look at each piece and say, I know exactly where it is. It's on the floor here in front of me. I have inventory. That's cool. Yeah, we need to know that. Yes, we need to know where everything is. But what's more, though, I can pick up each one of those pieces and I have a value for it. That bolt costs this much. The steering wheel costs that much. The gear lever costs this much. I can look at each of the individual parts to a car and say, I know what they're worth. So now I've got asset and inventory information. But you know, until I put that car together, until I screw all those pieces together and join that car into one thing, I don't have a car, I just have a list. And the power from a car is when you configure it, when you join it all together. So configuring is taking all those assets, all those inventories, and joining them together. So I can look and say, what do I need to support accounts payable? What components do I need? How much are they worth? Where are they? And I can see the whole picture. And that's what we're trying to do here. To be able to join a car together, we need to know the configuration. Which bit connects to which bit? Exactly the same with the CMDB. If we look at all the configuration items, and a configuration item can vary widely in size, type, and so on, as we'll see in a minute. But if we look at all the configuration items, and just for a moment, imagine those as being the components that go to make up the infrastructure, the hardware, the software, the telecoms. Configuration management says that's great, but if we knew how they were put together, for example, if I knew everything about what was required for one particular service, to generate one particular service, how it all links together, then I could ask very sensible questions like, we need to increase capacity for accounts payable by 10%. I can now look at all of the components end to end and make sure they've all got the capacity to absorb another 10%. If I don't have configuration management, then I have the problem of, well, which bits do I could do? How do I do it? So what we do is we measure on components. So a configuration item contains all the information about the individual components, and most important, their relationship to the other components. They're part of the same system, they're linked to, they're connected to, which is why they're part of the Service Knowledge Management System, which looks at managing configuration, because you may have more than one configuration management database. For example, you may have one for each country. You may have one for each region. You may be the kind of company that has different organizations below it as a holding company or something. So I want to know what those different companies have. I want to bring that together. Another key part of a CMDB is its ability, or should be its ability, to federate with other databases. So federation sounds very fancy. In fact, it's just linking to and using the data. For example, would you want to contain the names of people within your database, your CMDB, your configuration management database? I doubt it. But you might be useful to be able to link to, say, an HR database whenever you need that kind of information and bring it in to the screen so it looks like it's from one database, but in fact it could be from 2 or 3 databases or 3 or 4 databases. That way we don't break the cardinal rule of IT, and that is by trying to keep copies of, identical copies that is, of data in different places. That's just a recipe for success. The most important point is to make sure we have control, we know what we're doing, where we're going. The value to the business is huge. Better forecasting and planning of changes. For example, if you're going to change a component, let's say bring in a new server, which systems and services are on that server? Who's using those systems and services? How do they configure together to provide an overall service? So I may well say, I like this change, but you shouldn't be doing it on that database or on that server on that day because there's a business need or because you could be affecting a mission critical system or service. So we can assess, plan and deliver changes much, much better. It helps us to faster resolve incidents and problems. If I'm on the service desk and I see there's a particular server that's just crashed out, I should know instantly who's using that server. What services are coming through it? What's the importance of that server? Who can I notify? So rather than waiting for people to come to me, I can go to them and say, hey, we know that server's down, we're working on it, we're doing something about it, because we know who's using them. Service levels, or as I would prefer to call them, service warranties. I don't like service levels, I think service warranties. It's a warranty. I, as a business manager, know what I'm going to get. It's my warranty. They can be managed so much better, because if we're going to manage a service and we're going to deliver a service level on it, we have to make sure all of the components required to provide that service are all being measured and monitored on an ongoing basis, maybe to thresholds or whatever. It helps us better to adhere to standards, legal, regulatory, things like maybe Sarbanes-Oxley, something like that, where we can meet the legal requirements through IT by at any time being able to say we know what we have, where it is, what it's worth, and the role that it's providing within a service. It could be a database, it could be a transmission method, whatever the case may be. Increasingly, business opportunities require more and more powerful IT solutions. The best way to manage those solutions is to make absolutely sure we have control of our infrastructure. Changes can be traceable, and the most important part is if we have control of the services, we have control of costs. So, 10 points. If you're going to implement a CMDB, if you're thinking of implementing CMDB, remember, it's a major project. It's not just a case of buying a piece of software, putting it on the machine, maybe searching some data and say we've got it. It's about getting relationships in. Managing the size of the database matters. It's extremely important to decide the scope. For example, is it everything or is it just hardware? Is it just software? Is it local? And then the detail level. The more attributes or fields that you put in a configuration item, the more complex it becomes to manage a database. It's about balancing it. Number 3, understand that suppliers of configuration management tools are business partners, and we need to work with them, use their expertise and use their skills. Continually look at government regulations and governance regulations to make sure that as you build your CMDB, and indeed when it's live, it continues to meet governance requirements. A CMDB is a CMDB. However, it's a good idea to follow a best practice, particularly ITIL, which is where the CMDB first came to light. Following ITIL will give you the set of processes, procedures and management functions to go around your CMDB to make sure it's successful. For example, change management is the key to ensuring that if there's a change done, the CMDB is updated accordingly. Secure buying. It's extremely important that we buy in with security to make sure that security understand what we're doing. Number 7, consider the processes, the other processes, how they will benefit, how incident management, capacity management, availability management, etc. will benefit because they'll be able to work at a service level rather than a component level. And that's extremely important. Components, say a server, are measurable, but they don't help us measure in the business. It doesn't help us measure in the business services. So across. Make sure, number 8, that you prepare a population plan. As I said before, you just don't get it and put it on. It has to be planned because many of the relationships can only be identified manually and entered manually. So always have a plan. Remember, getting the balances right. Putting too much information in is wonderful, but it won't get updated. Not putting enough in means it stays accurate, but it's no good to anybody. It's getting that balance, that usability, fit for purpose balance. Lastly, point number 10. It is a big project. Do not rush. A CMDB is not just a way to store and manage information. It's also a key decision-making tool for senior management. Let's always keep that in mind. We manage the shop floor with it, and we empower managers to make better decisions. That's what a CMDB does. But for more information, if you'd like to find out any more about CMDB, bestmanagementpractice.com. That's the place to go.